gonna do is we're gonna do another app.
Yeah.
That was a crazy one with Trey, right? Trey Nichols.
It's pretty intense. You should go check that one out.
Yeah. And the information will be bing right there. Or bing right here.
And I'm Ulric.
I am Doctor Surgeon, the people's doctor.
Doctor Surgeon, the people's doctor. Ulric and Big Elvis and Chef Rosenberg. We are here. And we are...
Was Mr. Rogers?
The doc has a clip.
I'm excited. We're very excited about this.
Trying to warn us.
And the question was
This former rap facility. They're gonna process the flour.
Let's see if we get a producer. We're going to have this stuff ready and quick and up and at 'em.
you know?
So we're looking at
And the question was Mr. Rogers right? Hopefully you guys can hear it. All right, let's just, here we go.
Was Mr. Rogers trying to warn us? Listen.
I'm very much concerned, as I know you are, about what's being delivered to our children in this country. Boys are boys from the beginning. Girls are girls right from the start. Everybody's fancy, everybody's fine, everybody's fancy, and so is mine. Because sometimes children think that they might change. They might have to change after a while. And, you know, we laugh about that now, but it's because we had that concern when we were little. Yeah, because you're really not sure. You thought maybe you'd become a girl, or a girl would become a boy, right? Exactly. Happens frequently out here. Only girls can be the mommies. Only boys can grow up and be the daddies. Yes, sir. Or a girl can be someday a lady, and a boy can be someday a man.
Was Mr. Rogers trying to warn us? Listen.
I'm very much concerned, as I know you are, about what's being delivered to our children in this country.
What you guys think about that? Now this is and this was some type of congressional hearing back, you know, from the footage you look at least mid '80s or earlier than that.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, when do you know that to come out?
Yeah, well, that's the timeline I'm thinking about.
Okay, so
Think about it. And Mr. Rogers and that, he was actually look young.
Very young.
So yeah.
So I'll say personally, you want me to start it off?
No, go ahead.
So I'll say unequivocally, yes, in terms of, I believe that Mr. Rogers had an understanding of how things were going, how the media was going, how politically, how things were changing in so much as policies started being presented in policies that had to do with, I guess, allowing surgeries for men and women, but I can't verify if that came as early as he was talking about. But something that's currently happening that in society that he was referring to, that I don't know if he saw little inklings, because I don't know what policy that he was looking at that made him go in front of a congressional hearing that made him actually say those things. So I don't know the full context. But I think 100% the present proves that not only was Mr. Rogers cognizant of the trajectory of what was happening with how men were viewed and how men and women were viewed, but I think there was also something that sparked Mr. Rogers to say these things, especially to go on what seems like a media tour about the man's role and the woman's role, or boy's role and the girl's role. And
So what was he right about?
I think he was right. So
He
the
was right that-
question is about was Mr. Rogers warning us, and so was his that collection of congressional speeches and talk show and those media appearances, did he know that we'd have to be warned and this would have to be addressed in the future? And I think the only reason that you would say something is, when Mr. Rogers was saying this was like, I guess you said it was maybe the 90s, even if it was the late 90s, to say something so obvious, it would sound almost ridiculous. A boy must grow into a man, and little girls must grow into women. like those kinds of sentiments
Only
would
the
be
boys
kind of,
could be the daddies, only the girls could be the mommies.
yeah.
So it's very basic stuff, being said in such a way that at some point the very basis of it could be questioned, and that's the place that we kind of find ourselves now. And how did we, drift so far away? And the question, the basic question, I guess,
Whoa.
the most basic
How
question.
did we drift? It couldn't have been a drift so far away if there was a problem 40 years ago. 50 years ago, what are you saying? He was cognitive of the future?
Drift so far away, meaning with those basic understandings that we have, so we have to separate the minds of the living human being that's here, how we think naturally, and you compare that with what society is saying. There's a vast difference, and the idea is that from those basic notions.
Do that one more time.
So we have to say,
I want to understand you.
folks.
I don't want to
are
nod my head at
naturally-
my friend and go, yeah.
Folks are naturally have a sentiment that's true to their core. And what I'm saying, the person who's unabashed, who's going to express themselves in how they see the world and what they think about themselves and the people around them, is in vast contrast with what society is pushing.
You mean their gender core? When you say
So
their
we
core?
can say gender. So the thing is, it could be anything, but in this specific thing, we're talking about the gender. And now that difference is greater now than it's ever been before. And the idea is, how do we drift so far from what we would naturally say or normally say that wouldn't even been a question, but it's at a point now where that very basis is being kind of questioned. And, some of the most basic questions.
Is it questioning it or is it being redefined?
Well, so the thing about it is, for the person, it depends where you're standing at. For a person, it'll be like it's questioning. So in other words, this is the fact, so why are you questioning? And then if it's redefining, it's almost like, well, we think it's something to be redefined. So that's almost like giving up, and we're waiting for the, what's the definition this year? So, in my thoughts,
And this is all about him saying little boys are going to be men and little girls are going to be ladies.
right?
And was he clairvoyant or did he see an agenda happening in the lurks?
I mean, I will say.
Did he peep that it was like, wait a minute? Did he come across some information? Did someone hit him off with some information, some Agenda 21, Agenda 30?
I would say yes.
And he's like, let me see about what can I do.
To do my part.
See, I get all that. You see, my problem is just that it's gonna be forgotten.
It will. And the thing is, it may be.
Wait, his sentiment against all this
Like
is
all
gonna be
this
forgotten?
stuff all that stuff that's put out. I mean, thankfully, this what we're doing now could be having that idea live on past this meme. I personally always hate when things are cut up in certain ways and there's no context. I remember there was a documentary that I saw around the time his movie came out, where he did go in front of Congress and he did talk about these things, and he was very, very, very religious man, and he came at it from a believer's point of view, and I look at what he said as it's like government to some degree. It's like gangsters to some degree. It's like, this, you ever heard the term, if you mess with the bull, you get the horns? And it's like, you ever heard of that?
Nah, never.
You mess with the bull, you get the horns. And there's another saying that you probably heard of, and that is don't poke the bear.
The
Was
poke
he
bear.
poking the bear of his timeline? Because no one who hasn't seen this meme or the movie that came out a few years ago, no one really knows of what this man was truly trying to say. We can only make meaning from the snippets that we saw. And and try to make sense of that for what our beliefs are and
Yeah.
what we believe.
Are we talking about this particular?
Yeah.
So I mean, so what I believe that was, I don't think that was a movie. I think that was him making a statement to
So they
Congress. or
recently
something.
did a Hollywood movie about him.
Yeah.
Where he
yeah.
does, like, I think in the movie, he goes to Congress and all that stuff.
And
You
mention-
know?
So I think
Yeah.
that's
I could be
how-
wrong.
No,
I didn't see
no,
the
I mean,
movie.
so that could be highlighting that piece of it would just so happen to go hand in hand with the stuff that we're seeing now. So why does this, make any sense? Is the fact of what we're seeing going on in society now and the things that are kind of being pushed on our children. And if some 25, 30, 35 years ago, we have just gentlemen saying this, it's for us to kind of just take a pause and look at. But like I said, from the past, anybody that has such an influence, and especially at that time, that's when we just had the channels 2, 4, 5, 7, 9,
Right.
11, and
Yeah.
13.
Which was totally controlled.
Yeah.
So he was on 13, so he had that voice. So I think he
PBS,
completely
yeah.
I think he was completely aware of things that were happening, and maybe they rubbed him the wrong way. Maybe they didn't. Maybe it was all part of a ploy to, bring this awareness up, to shut it down in front of everybody.
Can I
So,
say this?
that's
Let me
yeah.
say this.
you know.
Next week, we need to revisit this because I want to really know a little bit more about what was really said and what was the setting in the Congress and all this stuff. What was the objective here? Because this does have something that possibly this is looking for people like us to not let this story die. Maybe
Yeah.
we need to really tackle this and look at it from a different way
The
instead
question
of just
would be,
kind of just.
If it doesn't die, what does that mean?
If it, well,
If that means that you're in a fight still. You're aware of the fight that you're in.
And
The problem is the 85% of the people, they're not aware that there's a war going on between good and evil.
well,
And how dare you think you know which one is which?
that's interesting. But whatever.
How dare you think
I'll say one
you know
thing.
that your version of what evil is?
All right, so I'll say one thing about Mr. Rogers, and this is actually really relevant. So the doctor's the one who.
The homie back over it.
That-
How dare you?
Chill
How dare you
out,
think
Elvis,
you
you got
know
it.
what good and evil
You
is?
got it,
And you're
Elvis.
evil and you're good. The homie back over
You got it. You
Homie
got it.
back.
Elvis.
Homie
Chill out,
back.
man. Chill. Be easy. All right. Be easy. You good?
Come on, come
You
on,
got the
come on.
sneaking salts. Anyway, look. So listen, Mr. Rogers was a big person, I guess, on the periphery of my childhood. But Mr. Rogers was never in my childhood.
Right.
So I mentioned earlier that the doc, when I saw this video, I got excited. I got excited about that. I didn't know that this was what Mr. Rogers was about. I didn't know Mr. Rogers had bigger, I guess, had any bigger
Right.
impact or contact. But when it came to Mr. Rogers, growing up, something about Mr. Rogers was off to us, was off to my contemporaries. It was not cool to watch Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers was known as a creep when I was growing up. Mr. Rogers, I don't
That
know.
saddens me to hear you say
I
that.
don't know that. That's why it's bad. That's why watching this video and seeing what his background is and seeing how he feels about certain things. My image of Mr. Rogers and my image of my friend's image of Mr. Rogers, he was a weirdo. He was a creep. He might have been. The common joke is he's some kind of pedophile. Yeah, he was an oddball. He was a pedophile. He was a creep. Yeah, but that's how I was raised through Mr. Rogers, and you start to come to the conclusion in given this video, it makes you think. Was my image contrived to a situation? Because what did he really do? Mr. Rogers, he was always ready for the morning. He got his shit together, and I went to military school for 1 year. Military school, what they teach you got to get within 8 minutes of waking up, you should be dressed. Like that's the biggest thing. Like you should get your shit dressed, have your socks on, have your shit ready to go. And part of what now I don't know that Mr. Rogers has a military background. I think he does. But part of
Why
Mr.
do you
Rogers,
think he does? It just feels like it?
I remember something. Maybe I'm conflating him with Bob Ross.
Okay, that's
But I
fine.
remember because anyway. But so what but I remember Mr. Rogers' opening and how he always wanted you to be prepared for the day and be ready for the day and have your shit together and be immaculate in the way you present yourself to the public. And I think those kinds of principles are kind of, especially for a young man, and you know, I do believe in gender roles, and so
You believe in gender roles?
anyways. I think
You ultimate gender roles.
yes, not societal gender roles. Then from the
Don't let me talk about your breakfast from the other day.
I don't even know what the hell you're referring to, but anyway,
Remember the breakfast that was ordered? And I said, why didn't she cook? That would be a gender role, no?
some woman ordered. All right, this is whatever. Some woman ordered breakfast. For us to eat, and he said, "This is like the second time we hanging out." He's like, "Why she cook for you already?" It's the second time we see each
So
other.
no, here's the
But
thing though.
he's
Ulric had plans to meet with the person. So
I didn't say I wanted to
said-
talk about this. I'll say.
I said, wait a minute. Shouldn't the person have, instead of ordering breakfast in the morning, shouldn't they have cooked? If
Is that their place?
This is at their
Yeah,
place.
this is the second
This is-
time we have.
this-
This is the
this
second
is-
time I'm
this
seeing.
is-
This part of discernment.
This is,
Hmm?
yeah, this is that
This,
person.
I'm just. What am I not discerning? Tell me what I'm not discerning.
They have home court advantage. Why would
This is
the person
it's crazy.
knowing, listen to me, when I'm,
Know you're coming over.
Look, I know that I'm gonna clean my house, my bathroom, and before
That
I
was
leave,
the issue.
Before I
All right.
listen, before I leave the house, I'm gonna hit the spray right around the doorway and put it on the floor and then close the door so that if I just so happen to bring somebody home, possibly somebody's gonna come home, they're gonna see the house is, I'm ready. When I was a single man, my house never was dirty.
That's 'cause
because
you're so
you
neurotic.
never know,
That's different.
You never know how the
That's
night is gonna
pathological.
go.
That's
How
pathological.
do you
That's
have an
pathological.
actual person meeting you? You already hung out with them once before. You're gonna meet them for the second time, and then in the morning you're doing all this ordering for food.
I'm not ordering.
You're not ordering. She was surprising him with just an assortment of ordered food. My thing was, she should have went in the kitchen and whipped something up for 15, 20 minutes.
It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's something that you kind
So I'm saying, when I mentioned that, he wasn't talking about no gender roles or none of that stuff. So that's why I brought it up.
Oh, okay. So you're addressing some conceived hypocrisy, though. Come on.
Okay, when does the gender role? When do you believe in gender roles? When?
Okay, so with this person, so part of what Mr. Rogers was saying about Mr. Rogers was, I guess, clarifying in what he was presenting is how men conduct themselves, how women conduct themselves. Now, you're talking about a woman. The second night I'm spending time with her. After the first night was a night of debauchery, and the second night that I should be ready for a meal implies that on the second night that I'm moving in some trajectory towards a
I'm
relationship.
talking about her role.
No, but her role wouldn't be that way if you're not moving in the trajectory of a relationship at that moment.
Okay.
And that wasn't. So why would I expect that? That's crazy.
I just don't
Is
get
that-
how a person her age doesn't have eggs and bacon and all that shit in the fridge already.
Eggs, it's cold.
Eggs,
He got that.
bacon.
He got the
I've seen her
joke.
pick up a couple of bagels
He
the
got
day
the
before.
joke.
You know, if y'all don't come, if she don't bring them over, and she still got the bagels in the, and it's in the microwave. You know, come on, how you ain't gonna bust open the microwave? You reach down under the sink, you grab the toaster. Come on, and you
Elvis,
put the
you're out of
bagels.
control. You're
And
out of
then
control.
you're like, come on. I'm not asking her to whip you no butter. I'm saying, come on, that's a gender role. You see the gender role, how it's changed? He's like, no, it's not a gender role because then that would mean no. A woman that knows that she's going out with a guy should have something in the fridge if she maybe potentially possibly.
I'm gonna start seeing
bring
that
it
seriously
home.
just to spite you.
So that-
I'm gonna get serious with it just to spite you. My
You
kid.
have to do what,
Like
you
that.
have to live your life on life's terms, son. You cannot try to spite anyone, and all I'm
It's the
saying
second
is
time
that,
it's digressed into relationship. We were talking
I
about
just want you to just remember
Mr.
that.
Rogers.
Just remember, this is not a young person. This is, this is not a young person. This is not,
Stop
this is
talking.
this person is seasoned. You know, not middle-aged seasoned or anything like that. Has the person hit the wall? Possibly the wall,
Anyways.
she's over the wall a little bit, lightly a gear or two over the wall. The proverbial wall that they're unaware of until they get to know.
I hope she watches this podcast and she hates you forever.
Huh? Well, let me say this. If she's watching the podcast, there's definitely a fantasy going on. It ain't only about you. These are the times we're in. Let me just say this. I want to revisit this. This I don't really have too much of an opinion on, other than to know that the questioning whether or not boys are going to be boys or boys turn into men and then girls turn into girls, I don't even think, for me, that that's even important. To me, it's trivial. I think we need to look at the world that we're in that is fighting
Right.
for an unrealistic existence. And the people that accept it and don't want any smoke. You know, in New York, you misgender somebody in New York, $250,000 fine.
No.
Obama did that.
I didn't know that. We gotta clarify that. We need to, don't be saying
What?
stuff that's not, that doesn't sound right.
$250,000 in New York
There's probably
City
more to that.
for misgendering.
There's probably more
I'm
to
about to
that.
go everywhere and I want to be misgendered. I'm suing. I'm suing. I'm gonna be like, I need to like go to like get a court.
My name is
appearance.
not Elvis, I'm Elvira.
No, I just, you see the great thing about this
You can be
world, that
whatever.
I could be this person all inside. The person
Gotcha.
that I'm giving to the world got nothing to do with, you better respect what's inside my mind and
Yeah.
how I perceive myself.
And yeah.
Reality doesn't need to be involved here. DNA doesn't need to be involved here. It's words. And these words are spells. So we have to be very, very aware of the games that are being played and what we're conceding to. What we're bowing down to is, I don't want to smoke. Because just imagine if I'm an employer and I got a guy in a beard and one day he shows up to work with a dress on, but he sounds just like the same guy who works for me. He's doing that. If I misgender this person, I could be sued.
Well, listen, I identify as infallible, but people don't think me is always right. So I gotta say that.
Infallible.
But, you know.
I like that.
Hey, you like the 144,000 going,
No, I'm not wrong. I identify differently. Identify is right
It
here.
was a good clip, Doc. We're gonna revisit it again. We'll get some more information. I am Big Elvis, the Chef Rosenberg,
I'm Ulric.
I'm Dr. Surgeon, the people's doctor.
and you are loved. Venmo is at Elvis-Rosenberg, and the $ Elvis Rosenberg, one word, is the Cash App. I love you. Boom, boom.